My name is Marlene Whitaker. I was 63 years old when my parents sat me down in their dining room in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and told me they had given my inheritance to my younger brother, Kevin. Not part of it, not alone, all of it. They said Grandma June was old, tired, and too confused to know what she had promised. They said Kevin needed the money more because he had a wife, grown children, and a business that carried the family name. They said I should be grateful I had been spared the responsibility. But 14 days later, my 91-year-old grandmother picked up the phone beside her recliner, dialed a number she had kept taped inside her Bible for 8 years, and said one sentence that changed everything. Harold, they finally did it. By the time that call was finished, a lawyer, a bank manager, and a county clerk knew what my parents had done. And 3 weeks after that, in a church fellowship hall with half our family watching, the truth came out in a way my brother could not smile his way through. That phone call is the reason I am telling this story now. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This is where quiet people finally tell the truth without begging to be believed. This is where documents matter, where old promises matter, where a woman's calm voice can be stronger than a room full of people calling her dramatic. If you have ever been made to feel selfish for asking for what was rightfully yours, or if your own family has ever treated your peace like something they could take from you, this story is for you. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and whether you have ever had to protect your heart from people who shared your blood. I was not raised to fight over money. My mother made sure of that. She used to say, "Marlene, nothing ugly should happen at a table where food is served." So I learned early to swallow hurt with mashed potatoes, to smile through comments that stung, and to clear plates while other people decided what was fair. I was the oldest child. That means I was the practice child, the helper child, the one who understood before anybody explained. My brother Kevin came along 7 years after me, with blonde curls, a wide smile, and a talent for making adults forgive him before he even apologized. If he broke a lamp, my mother said he was energetic. If I forgot to fold the towels, she said I was careless. If he needed gas money at 25, he was finding his footing. If I needed help changing a tire, I should have planned better. That was how our house worked. My parents, Raymond and Carol Bennett, lived in the same white brick ranch house for 44 years. It sat on a quiet street where people still waved from porches and cut their grass every Saturday morning. My father had been a parts manager at a tractor supply company, and my mother worked part-time at the church office until her knees got bad. They were not rich people, but they were careful people. At least, that is what I believed for most of my life. I lived about 20 minutes away, in a small townhouse with a patch of roses out front and a kitchen just big enough for 2 people to drink coffee without bumping elbows. My husband, Thomas, had passed 7 years earlier from a stroke that came in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday. One minute he was telling me we needed more furnace filters, and the next minute my world had split in half. We never had children, not because we did not want them. Life just did not open that door for us. There were years of doctors, prayers, quiet disappointments, and finally a kind of peace that settled in after I stopped blaming my own body. Thomas used to say, "Marlene, family is not only who comes from you, it is who you keep showing up for." So I showed up. I showed up for my parents. I showed up for Kevin's children when they needed rides. I showed up for church casseroles, hospital visits, birthday cakes, grocery runs, and Sunday dinners where my mother still corrected the way I sliced tomatoes. Most of all, I showed up for my grandmother. Grandma June was my mother's mother, June Elaine Porter, though nobody called her June Elaine unless she was signing something official. She had lived long enough to bury 2 brothers, 1 husband, and most of the women she used to play cards with on Thursday nights. At 91, she was small, but not fragile. Her hands were crooked with arthritis, but her mind was sharp enough to remember what everyone wore to my cousin's wedding in 1989. She lived at Rosewood Manor, a clean assisted living place near Scottsville Road. She hated when people called it a facility. "It's an apartment with nurses," she would say. "Don't dress it up like a hospital, and don't talk down like I'm furniture." Every Wednesday after work, I brought her a cheeseburger with no onions from the little diner she liked. Every Saturday morning, I did her laundry because she said the machines there made her nightgowns smell like metal. Once a month, I drove her to the cemetery where Grandpa Joe was buried under a maple tree, and she would sit in the passenger seat afterward, quiet for a long while, one hand resting over her purse. Grandma and I had our own language. She would tap the table twice when she was ready to leave somewhere. She would say, "That's interesting," when she did not believe a word someone had said, and when she looked over the top of her glasses and asked, "Who benefits from that?" You knew she had already seen through whatever story was being told. Grandma owned a little house on Laurel Bend Road for almost 50 years. It was not fancy. It had yellow siding, a carport, a laundry room that always smelled like bleach, and a backyard with 2 pecan trees that dropped leaves into the gutters every fall. But to me, that house was safety. I spent summers there as a girl, sleeping on a pull-out couch under a quilt Grandma made from old dresses. That was where she taught me to peel apples without breaking the skin. That was where Grandpa Joe let me sit beside him while he fixed radios. That was where I ran when my parents were arguing, and nobody wanted to admit they were arguing. After Grandpa died, Grandma kept the house for years. Then her hip started bothering her, and the steps became too much. She moved into Rosewood Manor, but she would not sell the house right away. "I need to know where my memories are," she told me, so I kept an eye on it. I checked the pipes in winter. I watered the hydrangeas. I picked up mail, swept the porch, paid the neighbor boy to mow, and sat there sometimes just to make sure the place did not feel abandoned. In 2018, Grandma called me over one rainy afternoon. She had made coffee even though it was already 4 o'clock. On her kitchen table sat a blue folder, a yellow legal pad, and her old recipe tin with faded strawberries painted on the lid. "Marlene," she said, "I want you to listen and not interrupt." I smiled. That usually means I'm about to interrupt. She did not smile back. She opened the blue folder and took out a document with a red tab on one corner. "This house," she said, "and the account your grandpa left are not going through your mother." I remember how strange that sounded. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I know my daughter," Grandma said. "I love Carol, but love does not make a person fair. And your father has never seen Kevin clearly a day in his life." I looked down at my coffee. Grandma continued, "I have made arrangements. When I'm gone, the house proceeds and the savings account go to you. Kevin has already received help from this family 6 times over. Your mother will be angry, so she will not be in charge of it." "Grandma, I don't need." She lifted one finger. I said, "Listen." So I listened. She told me she had gone to a lawyer named Harold Simmons, an older man who had handled Grandpa's estate. She said there was a trust, a transfer on death deed, and a letter explaining her wishes. She said the original papers were kept at the lawyer's office, and copies were in a safe deposit box at Cumberland Trust Bank. Then she slid a small white envelope toward me. On the front, in Grandma's neat cursive handwriting, were 4 words. "For Marlene, when needed." "I hope you never need it," she said. Inside was a card with Harold Simmons' office number, the name of the bank manager, and a note that said, "Do not sign anything about my property without speaking to Harold first." I tried to give it back to her. She closed my fingers around it. "People who never plan to hurt you usually don't mind you having proof," she said. That sentence stayed with me. If you are a mother or grandmother watching this, you may understand why a promise like that is not really about money. It is about being seen. It is about someone noticing the years you spent showing up when nobody clapped for you. For 5 years after that, nothing happened. Grandma stayed at Rosewood. I stayed in my little townhouse. Kevin ran Bennett Outdoor Supply, which sounded more successful than it was. My parents continued to host Sunday dinners, where my mother made pot roast too dry and my father watched football too loud. The first warning sign came on a Thursday in March. My mother called while I was sorting laundry. "Marlene," she said, "do you have your social security number handy?" I laughed a little. "Hello to you too. I need it for Grandma's paperwork." "What paperwork?" "Just some beneficiary updates. Nothing dramatic." That word, dramatic, was one my mother used whenever she wanted me to stop asking questions. I said, "Why would Grandma's paperwork need my social security number?" There was a pause. "Because you're listed in some places and everything has to be cleaned up. You know how these things are." "No, I don't know how these things are," she sighed. "Marlene, please don't make a process out of every little thing. I'm trying to help my mother. I almost gave it to her." That is the part I still think about. I had my purse on the kitchen chair. My card was in my wallet. One little number over the phone, and maybe they could have done even more damage. But something in my chest tightened. I'll give it to Grandma directly if she needs it, I said. My mother's voice cooled. Fine, make it difficult. At the time, I told myself she was tired. Caregiving brings out sharp edges in people. I knew that the second warning came 2 weeks later at Grandma's old house. I pulled into the driveway and found Kevin standing in the carport with a measuring tape clipped to his belt. His wife, Dana, was on the back porch, looking through the kitchen window like a woman touring a property. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Kevin gave me that easy grin of his. "Dad asked me to check a few things." "What things?" "Repairs. Value. You know." "No, I don't know." Dana turned around and smiled too quickly. "It's such a sweet little place. The light in the kitchen is beautiful." I looked at her, then back at Kevin. "Grandma hasn't decided to sell." Kevin shrugged. "At her age, decisions get made around her more than by her. That's just reality." I wish I had written that sentence down. Not because I forgot it, but because later, when he denied saying things like that, I wanted the ink to prove my memory. The third warning came from a missing object. Grandma kept her important little things in that strawberry recipe tin. Not the actual legal documents, but notes, receipts, old keys, prayer cards, and the kind of information older women keep because they know someday someone will pretend not to know. One Saturday morning, I brought her clean laundry and found her sitting in her recliner with her hands folded tight in her lap. "Where is my tin?" she asked. "What tin?" "My strawberry tin." I checked the top drawer of her dresser, the nightstand, the closet shelf, even under the chair cushion. It was gone. "When did you last see it?" I asked. "Carol was here Tuesday." That was all she said. I called my mother from the parking lot. "Did you take Grandma's recipe tin?" "For heaven's sake," she said. "I borrowed it to look for an old insurance card. Grandma wants it back. I'll bring it when I get around to it." She's upset. She's always upset when she can't control every object she ever owned. That sentence bothered me more than I admitted. The fourth warning came through the mail. Grandma asked me one day, "Have you seen my bank statement?" "No, I haven't either." I checked with the front desk at Rosewood, nothing. I checked the locked mailbox at her old house, nothing. When I asked my mother, she said, "We switched it to paperless. Less clutter. Grandma doesn't use email." "I do," my mother said. "But it's her account." "Marlene, you have got to stop acting like I'm stealing from my own mother." I had not used the word stealing. That was the first time she did. "Before you decide what you would have done, wait until you hear what my father said next, because sometimes the person who sounds calm is the one who has been practicing the longest." It was early May when Dad asked me to meet him for breakfast at the Waffle House near Campbell Lane. My father never asked to meet alone. He believed emotional conversations were women's work unless they involved a bill, a fence, or an engine. He was already sitting in a booth when I arrived, wearing his navy jacket and stirring coffee he had not tasted. After we ordered, he leaned back and said, "Your mother is worried about you." That was never a good beginning. "Why?" "You've become possessive of Grandma." I blinked. "Possessive?" "You hover. You question everything. You act like you're the only one who cares. I'm the one doing her laundry and driving her to appointments. And nobody is saying we don't appreciate that." But his voice said the opposite. Then he took a napkin and folded it into a small square, once, twice, 3 times. "Kevin has more responsibility than you," he said. "That's just a fact." I felt my throat tighten. What does Kevin have to do with Grandma's care? Dad looked toward the window. Men carry different burdens. Kevin's youngest is 27. He has employees. He has a mortgage on the business property. He has people depending on him. And I don't? My father did not answer right away. The waitress set down our plates. Eggs, toast, hash browns. Food arriving in the middle of something painful always makes the pain feel stranger. Finally, Dad said, "You've always been more independent." That was what they called it when they left me alone. I pushed my plate away. "Dad, what is this really about?" He looked at me then, and for a second I saw something like guilt. But it passed quickly. "Just try not to make things harder than they need to be," he said. That was the fifth warning. The sixth came from my niece, Kevin's daughter, Ashley. Ashley was 32. with two little boys and her mother's habit of talking too fast when she was nervous. She had always been sweet to me, though not close. One Sunday after dinner, while my mother was wrapping leftovers in foil, Ashley followed me out to the porch. "Aunt Marlene," she said quietly, "did Grandma give Dad the house?" My hand froze on my purse strap. "Why would you ask that?" She looked back through the screen door. "Mom said they're going to use it to help with the business loan. She said it's what Grandma wanted." I felt a coldness move through me. "Who told her that?" Ashley shook her head. "I don't know. I probably wasn't supposed to say anything." Then she went back inside, leaving me on the porch with my keys in my hand and my mother's wind chimes clinking above me. That was the warning I could not excuse. I went home and found the envelope Grandma had given me in 2018. It was tucked inside my sewing basket under a packet of needles. "For Marlene Ising, when needed." I read the card again. "Do not sign anything about my property without speaking to Harold first." I should have called Harold Simmons that night. I know that now. But family training is a powerful thing. It teaches you to doubt your own alarm. It teaches you to think, maybe I misunderstood, maybe I'm being suspicious. Maybe asking questions will make me the problem, so I waited. And then came the dinner. It was a Sunday in June, the kind of Kentucky evening where the air feels wet even after the sun goes down. My mother had made fried chicken, green beans, corn pudding, and a peach cobbler that sat cooling on the counter. Kevin and Dana were there. My parents were there. Ashley came without her husband, and my cousin Beth stopped by after church. Grandma was not invited. That alone should have told me something. I asked my mother, "Is Grandma feeling okay?" "She gets tired," Mom said. "She likes Sunday dinners." Mom set a bowl on the table harder than necessary. "Not everything has to include Grandma." We sat down. My father prayed. His prayer was longer than usual, full of words like wisdom, unity, and gratitude for family leadership. When he said amen, nobody reached for food. My mother looked at my father. My father looked at Kevin. Kevin looked down at his plate with the expression of a man pretending to be humble. I knew then. My mother cleared her throat. "Marlene, we need to talk as a family." My skin prickled. "About what?" "About expectations," she said. I looked at the chicken, the folded napkins, the iced tea sweating in glasses. Ordinary things, arranged around something cruel. Dad said, "Your mother and I have made a decision regarding Grandma's estate." I put my hands in my lap. "You made a decision about Grandma's estate?" Mom said, "With Grandma's best interest in mind. Grandma is alive." Dana stared into her tea. Kevin said, Marlene, don't start like that." I looked at him. "Start like what?" "Like everyone is attacking you." That was how he always did it. He accused you of reacting before you had reacted, so anything you said afterwards sounded like proof. My father leaned forward. "Your grandmother's house and the account connected to Grandpa Joe's savings are being used to help Kevin stabilize the business." For a moment, the room became very clear. I saw a drop of condensation slide down my glass. I saw my mother's thumb rubbing the edge of her napkin. I saw Ashley close her eyes. "What do you mean, being used?" I asked. Kevin answered this time. "It's a bridge loan, basically. From Grandma, from family assets," my father said. I looked at my mother. "Grandma promised that house and account to me." My mother's face hardened. "Grandma has promised many things over the years. She's old, Marlene. She is not confused. She has good days and bad days." "That's not true." Mom's voice dropped into that church office tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. "You are too emotionally attached to see clearly." I turned to my father. "Did Grandma sign something?" Dad said. "We have power of attorney. That is not the same as ownership." Kevin sighed loudly. "This is exactly why we didn't tell you sooner." There it was. I looked at him. "You didn't tell me because you knew it was wrong." Dana finally spoke. "Marlene, Kevin has worked so hard. The business is carrying debt from COVID, supply costs, all of it. Your life is simpler." "My life is simpler? You don't have children to leave things to," she said softly, like she was offering comfort. The cruelest words are sometimes wrapped in a gentle voice. My mother reached into the chair beside her and pulled out a mandila envelope. "We had papers drawn up," she said. "Nothing complicated. Just something acknowledging that you understand Grandma's resources have been redirected according to family need." I stared at the envelope. "You want me to sign away something Grandpa left me?" Dad said. "Don't use dramatic language." What language should I use? Kevin leaned back. You should use grateful language. Ashley whispered. Dad, he ignored her. You've had years of Grandma's attention, Kevin said. You got her stories, her little keepsakes, her recipes. Nobody took that from you. I could not believe he had made memories sound like payment. My mother slid the paper toward me. Sign it tonight, she said, and we can keep this from becoming ugly. I looked down. The paper had my full name on it. Marlene Ann Whitaker. It said I acknowledged that any informal promises made by June Porter regarding future inheritance were not legally binding. It said I accepted the family's decision. It said I waived any objection. At the bottom, there was a blank line waiting for my signature. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I pushed the paper back. No. My mother's eyes flashed. Excuse me? No, Dad's jaw tightened. Marlene. I stood up. No, I am not signing that. And you are not going to sit here over fried chicken and tell me Grandma is confused just because she made a decision you didn't like. Kevin stood too. You have always acted like you're better than us. I almost laughed, but there was no joy in me. I have spent my whole life trying not to be in anybody's way. Mom said, you are making this harder than it has to be. I picked up my purse. No, Mom. You made it this hard. I'm just noticing. Then I left without eating. I wish I could tell you I drove straight to Grandma and told her everything. I did not. I drove home, locked my door, and sat at my kitchen table until the sky turned black. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes when your parents hurt you as an adult. It is not like childhood pain. It is quieter, almost embarrassing. You feel too old to cry over your mother's disapproval, but there you are, 63 years old, wiping your face with a paper towel because you never made it to the bedroom for tissues. I took out Thomas's photo from the shelf by the window. It was the one from our 25th anniversary. Him wearing that gray suit he hated and me laughing because he had spilled punch on his sleeve. What would you do? I asked the picture. Of course, he did not answer, but I remembered something he had said when his own brother tried to cheat him over their father's tools. Don't argue with someone who has already decided your pain is convenient, Thomas told me. Write things down. So I got a notebook. On the first page I wrote the date, June 11 family dinner, Mom, Dad, Kevin, Dana present. Grandma not invited. They said inheritance redirected to Kevin. Asked me to sign waiver, I refused. My handwriting shook at first, then steadied. The next morning, I called Rosewood Manor. Can I speak with June Porter, please? The nurse said. She's at breakfast, honey. Want me to have her call you? My mouth opened, then I stopped. I thought about Grandma sitting with her oatmeal, her little cup of coffee, her cardigan buttoned wrong because her fingers were stiff. I thought about putting this hurt into her lap before I knew what was legal, what was true, what had already been done. No, I said. I'll come by later. That afternoon, my mother called 6 times. I did not answer. Kevin texted once. You embarrassed Mom. This is why people don't include you. I took a screenshot. My father left a voicemail. Marlene, this is your dad. We need to calm this down. Nobody stole anything. Your brother needed help and family helps family. Call your mother. I saved it. If you have ever been treated like a burden by someone you helped for years, tell me in the comments. Not because strangers can fix it, but because sometimes saying, yes, that happened to me too, helps another person feel less alone. 2 days later, I went to Rosewood. Grandma was in her recliner, watching a game show with the sound too low. She looked at me once and muted the television. What did they do? She asked. I froze in the doorway. What? You have your church face on, she said. The one you use when you don't want people asking why your eyes are tired. I sat on the edge of her bed. For a minute, I could not speak. Grandma waited. She was good at waiting. Older women who have survived hard marriages, tight money, and family foolishness learn that silence pulls truth out faster than questions. Finally, I said, Mom and Dad said they gave your house money and Grandpa's account to Kevin. Grandma did not move, I continued. They said you were confused. They said they had power of attorney. They tried to make me sign a paper saying I wouldn't object. Her face changed, but not the way I expected. She did not look shocked. She looked tired, like a woman hearing a storm she had predicted finally hit the roof. Did you sign? She asked. No, she closed her eyes. Thank God, I whispered. Grandma, is it true? Did you change your mind? Her eyes opened. No. One word. Flat as a locked door. I started crying then, not loudly. Just enough that I had to press my fingers under my eyes. Grandma reached for my hand. Bottom drawer, she said. What? My sewing table. Bottom drawer. There's a brown address book. I found it under a stack of old Reader's Digest magazines and a plastic bag full of buttons. Inside, names were written in blue ink, some crossed out because those people had passed on. On the inside cover, taped neatly, was a business card, Harold Simmons, attorney at law. Grandma pointed toward the phone on the side table. Not a cell phone, a beige landline phone with big buttons because she said cell phones made people rude. Dial, she said. My heart started beating hard. Right now? Right now. Grandma, maybe we should. She looked at me over her glasses. Marlene Ann, I am 91 years old. Do not waste my Tuesday. So I dialed, a receptionist answered, and when I said Grandma's name, her voice changed. One moment, please. Less than 30 seconds later, a man came on the line. June? Grandma reached for the receiver. Her hand trembled, but her voice did not. Harold, they finally did it. There was a pause on the other end, then Mr. Simmons said, Who is with you? Marlene, is Carol there? No. Is Raymond no good? He said. June, I need you to answer clearly. Are you calling freely? Yes. Do you know what day it is? It's Tuesday, June 13th, and if you ask me who the president is like I'm on trial, I'll hang up on you. A small laugh came through the phone. Fair enough. Grandma said. Carol and Raymond told Marlene they gave Kevin what I left her. They tried to get her to sign. The line went quiet again. When Harold spoke, his voice was different, lower. Did Marlene sign anything? No. Did you authorize any gift or loan to Kevin Bennett from the Porter Trust, or any account marked for Marlene Whitaker? No. Did you authorize Carol or Raymond to change your estate plan? No. Did you authorize anyone to represent that you are confused? Grandma's mouth tightened. Absolutely not. Harold exhaled. June, I'm going to ask you not to discuss this with Carol, Raymond, Kevin, or Dana until I see you. I will come to Rosewood tomorrow morning with Laura from my office. Marlene, are you there? I leaned closer. Yes, sir. Do you still have the card your grandmother gave you? Yes. Good. Bring it tomorrow. Bring any texts, papers, voicemail, anything related to what they told you. Do not respond to your family in writing, except to say you will not discuss legal matters without counsel. Counsel, that word made my stomach twist. This was my mother, my father, my brother. These were people whose birthdays I knew, whose casseroles I had carried, whose children I had rocked to sleep. And now a lawyer was using words like counsel. Grandma put the receiver back in its cradle. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she looked at me and said, I was hoping I had been unfair about them. That hurt most of all, because she had not been. The next morning, Harold Simmons came to Rosewood with a leather briefcase, older than some of the nurses. He was in his late 70s, tall, thin, with white hair combed carefully and a pair of reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. His assistant, Laura, carried a laptop and a stack of folders. Grandma wore her lavender blouse and pearl earrings. She said, if people were going to try to steal from her, she was going to look decent while stopping them. We met in Rosewood's small library, a room with fake plants, 2 bookshelves, and a framed print of horses running through snow. Harold began by asking Grandma questions, not insulting questions, real ones, her full name, her date of birth, where she lived, what property she owned, who her children were, what she wanted done with her assets. Grandma answered everyone. Then he opened the folder. Inside were copies of documents I had never seen, the June Elaine Porter Revocable Trust, a transfer on death deed for the Laurel Bend house, a letter of intent addressed to my family, a financial power of attorney naming my mother as agent, but with strict language saying she could not gift, transfer, borrow, pledge, or redirect assets for herself, her spouse, or her children without written approval from Grandma and the attorney. Harold tapped that page. This is important. I leaned forward, he explained slowly, because good lawyers know that ordinary people need plain English when their family has already confused them. Carol can help pay June's bills, he said. She can manage care expenses. She can speak to banks if needed. But she cannot use June's funds to support Kevin's business. She cannot change beneficiaries. She cannot treat future inheritance as available family money. Grandma nodded once. I told you to make it tight. You did, Harold said. Then Laura turned the laptop toward us. We pulled preliminary bank activity this morning after June's call. she said. On the screen was a list of transactions. My eyes moved down the page. There were withdrawals I recognized as Rosewood payments, insurance, utilities for the Laurel Bend house. Then I saw it, a cashier's check, $74,500. Payable to Bennett Outdoor Supply LLC, Memo Line, Family Bridge Loan, May 26. My hand went cold. There's more, Laura said gently. Another transfer, $18. Payable to Kevin Bennett Memo. Equipment note, another 9,800. Payable to Dana Bennett. Memo reimbursement. Grandma looked at the screen a long time. Then she said, Carol signed those. Harold said, it appears Raymond signed one as witness. We are verifying. I felt like the air had gone thin. My parents had not just promised Kevin my inheritance. They had already started moving Grandma's money while sitting across from me at dinner, pretending it was a family decision. Then Laura opened a scanned document. It was titled, Family Acknowledgement of Estate Understanding. My name was typed in the first paragraph, and at the bottom, above a line labeled Marlene A. Whitaker, was a signature, not mine. It was a poor copy of mine, slanted too hard, the M too tall, the W wrong. For a second I could not speak. That is not my signature, I said. Harold's face did not change, but his eyes sharpened. You're certain? I'm certain. Grandma turned her head slowly toward me. They forged you? The room felt smaller, Laura said. This copy was emailed to the bank from Carol's email address on June 2. The bank did not accept it as authorization, but it is in the file. I pressed both hands together in my lap. My own mother had sent a forged signature with my name on it. I had known they favored Kevin. I had known they dismissed me. I had known they could be cold, but forgery is different. Forgery is not favoritism. It is not misunderstanding. It is a person sitting down with your name and deciding they have more right to it than you do. Grandma's face went pale. Harold closed the folder. June, he said, I recommend immediate revocation of Carol's power of attorney. We will notify the bank today. I also recommend a formal demand for accounting and repayment. Depending on the response, this could involve civil action and possibly a criminal referral. Grandma looked at him. Will Marlene have to sue her own parents? The question landed heavy. Harold took off his glasses. Not if they correct it voluntarily. But we need to protect you first. Grandma nodded. Then do it. Just like that. Not loud. Not dramatic. Then do it. That was the moment my grandmother became something more than a tired old woman in a recliner. She became the owner of her own life again. We spent the next 2 hours signing papers. Harold had arranged for a mobile notary, a woman named Denise with silver bracelets and a kind face. A nurse supervisor came in briefly and confirmed Grandma's lucidity in writing. Laura made copies of my texts and Dad's voicemail. I wrote a statement about the dinner. Grandma wrote one too, in careful block letters because her curses hurt her hand. When she finished, she slid the paper to Harold. At the bottom, she had written, I am not confused. I am disappointed. Harold read it twice. Then he put it in the folder. Don't leave yet, because the person who saved me was not only Grandma. There was one more witness sitting quietly in the background, and what she had saved on her phone would later make my brother stop talking for the first time in his life. That witness was Ashley. I did not know it yet. After Harold left, Grandma was tired. I helped her back to her room. She sat in her recliner, and I covered her legs with the blue afghans she liked. I'm sorry, I said. She looked up. For what? For bringing this to you. You didn't bring it. You uncovered it. I sat on the little chair beside her. Grandma, I don't want money badly enough to destroy the family. She reached over and touched my wrist. The family was not destroyed by the person who noticed the fire. I looked down. She continued. Listen to me. People will say you fought over money because that makes them feel better. This is not about money. This is about consent. This is about truth. This is about your mother thinking my age made me available. My throat tightened. She's your daughter. I know, Grandma said. That is why I gave her so many chances. A week passed. It was the longest week of my life. Harold sent formal notices to my mother, my father, Kevin, and the bank. The power of attorney was revoked. The accounts were frozen for review. A demand letter required a full accounting of every transaction made under Grandma's authority. My mother called me 23 times in 2 days. I answered none. Her voicemails changed as the days went on. The first one was angry. Marlene, I cannot believe you ran to Mother behind my back. You have no idea what you've done. The second was wounded. After everything I've done for this family, you're treating me like a criminal. The third was dangerous in the quiet way. You need to think very carefully about whether you want to spend whatever years we have left like this. I saved them all. Kevin sent one text. You're going to bankrupt Grandma with legal fees because you couldn't share. I did not respond. Dana sent a long message about forgiveness, stress, small businesses, and how women and families should lift each other up. I read it twice, then saved it too. My father did not call until the fourth day. When his name came up on my phone, I almost answered. There are habits you do not break easily. A daughter sees dad on the screen and some younger part of her still wants to be good. But I let it go to voicemail. His message was short. Marlene, enough. Call me. I played it 3 times, not because it said anything important, but because it showed me how little he believed he needed to say. Enough. That was my father's idea of repair. During that week, I kept going to work. I was part-time at the public library by then, helping with returns, shelving large print books, and setting up the community room for craft classes. Older women came in with tote bags and asked for mysteries, recipe books, and sometimes help printing forms from government websites. I looked at them differently that week. I wondered how many of them had children waiting for them to become easy to manage. I wondered how many had documents hidden in drawers. I wondered how many had been told, "We're only doing what's best for you," by someone who was really doing what was easiest for themselves. One afternoon, a woman in a red sweater asked me where we kept the books about wills. I walked her over to the shelf. She smiled sadly and said, "My daughter says I don't need one." I wanted to tell her everything. Instead said, "It never hurts to have your wishes written down." She patted my hand. That's what I thought, too. If you are watching from Florida, Texas, Ohio, Georgia, Pennsylvania, California, Kentucky, or anywhere in America, tell me where you are watching from. I promise you, family stories like this happen in quiet neighborhoods everywhere. They do not always look dramatic from the outside. The first public crack in my parents' version came through church. My mother had attended New Hope Baptist for 36 years. She arranged funeral meals, printed bulletins, and knew which families preferred sweet tea without lemon. Church was where she was most respected, and because of that, church was where she began shaping the story. A friend of mine, Ruth Ellen, called me on a Friday evening. Ruth Ellen was 72, widowed, and had no patience for gossip unless it was accurate. "Marlene," she said, "I'm going to ask you something plainly. All right, did you hire a lawyer to take your grandmother's house from your mother?" I closed my eyes. So that was the story. "No," I said. "Grandma called her own lawyer because money was moved without her permission." Ruth Ellen was quiet, then she said, "That sounds more like what I suspected. What did Mom say?" "She said you had become fixated on inheritance and that poor Kevin was trying to keep the family business alive." Poor Kevin, there he was again. A 56-year-old man with a boat, a lake membership, and a wife who got new countertops during a supposed financial crisis, still being described like a boy who lost his lunch money. Ruth Ellen lowered her voice. She also said, "Your grandmother is slipping." That made me sit up. "She is not." "I know," Ruth Ellen said. "I spoke with June last month about the bake sale, and she remembered my grandson's peanut allergy from 2004. Despite everything, I smiled. "That sounds like Grandma." Ruth Ellen said, "Be careful, honey. When people cannot win with facts, they start working on reputation." She was right. The next Sunday, I did not go to church. I watched the service online from my kitchen table, drinking coffee from Thomas's old mug. When the prayer requests came, my mother stood up. The camera was too far away to show her expression clearly, but I knew her posture. She asked for prayers for a painful family conflict and for hearts hardened by greed to soften. I turned off the computer. Then I sat there for a long time, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. Greed. I had given years of unpaid care, thousands of miles on my car, weekends, holidays, errands, patience, and pieces of my own life I would never get back. But the minute I said no to theft, I became greedy. That is how manipulation works. It does not only take from you, it gives your pain an ugly name and asks other people to repeat it. The second crack came from Ashley. She showed up at my townhouse the following Tuesday with a covered dish in her hands and worry all over her face. "I made chicken casserole," she said. It's probably dry. I let her in. She stood in my entryway like she was not sure she was allowed to sit down. Ashley, you're not in trouble, I said. She laughed nervously. I feel like everyone is in trouble. We sat at my kitchen table. She twisted her wedding ring around her finger. I need to tell you something, she said, but I don't want to hurt Dad. I waited. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. The night before that Sunday dinner, I was at Mom and Dad's house. Dad and Grandpa were talking in the garage. They didn't know I was outside with the boys' bikes. My heart began to pound. I heard Grandpa say, "If Marlene signs, it's clean. If she doesn't, we already have the old one." The old one? Ashley nodded. Then Dad said, "Mom can copy it close enough. The bank just needs something in the file." I felt my stomach turn. Ashley pulled out her phone. I recorded part of it. I stared at her. "You recorded it?" I didn't mean to at first. I was scared. I opened my camera because I thought if they saw me, I could pretend I was taking a picture of the boys. But it recorded audio. She opened a video. The screen showed mostly darkness and the side of a garage wall. But the voices were clear enough. My father. "Marlene's going to make this personal. She makes everything personal." My father. "Carol says she can handle the signature if needed." Kevin. "Good. Because if this loan doesn't go through, I'm done." My father. "Your grandmother should never put Marlene in that position." Kevin. "Grandma doesn't know what she signed half the time." My father. "Don't say that outside this garage." Then the sound of a toolbox closing, the video ended. I sat back. Ashley was crying now. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have told you sooner." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You were scared. I still am. Thank you for telling me." She wiped her face. "My dad is not a monster," she whispered. I know, and that was true. Kevin was not a monster. He was worse in some ways. He was familiar. He was charming. He remembered birthdays when it suited him. He made jokes. He hugged old ladies at church. He cried at movies about dogs, and he still took what was not his. That is hard for people to understand. Sometimes the people who harm you are not evil every minute of the day. Sometimes they are kind to waitresses and cruel to sisters. Sometimes they love their children and still steal from their grandmother. Sometimes the truth is not simple enough to fit into gossip. Ashley sent the video to Harold. 2 days later, Harold called me. "Marlene," he said, "your grandmother wants a family meeting." I closed my eyes. Is that wise? It may be necessary. Carol is refusing to provide full accounting unless the family discusses it together. She appears to believe June will soften in person. She won't. "No," Harold said. "I don't think she will." The meeting was set for the following Saturday at New Hope Baptist in the fellowship hall. My mother chose the location. I know that sounds strange, but Harold allowed it because Grandma wanted witnesses, and because the church had a private room with tables, chairs, and enough space for her wheelchair. My mother thought church would protect her. She thought nobody would challenge the woman who organized prayer chains and funeral potatoes. She forgot Grandma had taught half that church how to make funeral potatoes. I arrived early with Harold and Laura. Grandma came in a transport van from Rosewood, wearing a navy dress, white cardigan, and the pearl brooch Grandpa bought her in 1976. She looked small in the wheelchair, but her eyes were bright and hard. "Marlene," she said, "fix my collar." I bent down and fixed it. "You look pretty," I said. "I look prepared." Harold set a blue folder on the table in front of her. Not the same blue folder from years before, but close enough that my chest tightened. "Remember that folder," Grandma said quietly. I remember. The fellowship hall smelled like coffee, floor wax, and old hymnals. Folding chairs were stacked against one wall. A bulletin board announced the summer clothing drive. On the long counter near the kitchen, someone had left a tray of cookies under plastic wrap. It was strange, sitting in a room where I had served so many meals, waiting for my family to explain why they had forged my name. My parents arrived together. Mom wore her good green blouse and carried a purse tucked tight under her arm. Dad held the door for her, his face set like stone. Kevin and Dana came in behind them. Kevin looked confident until he saw Harold. Then his smile flickered. Ashley came last and sat near the back, away from her parents. My cousin Beth slipped in too. So did Ruth Ellen. So did Pastor Jim, not as a judge, he said, but as a witness because my mother had involved the church in prayer requests. My mother looked at the small crowd and stiffened. "I thought this was family," she said. Grandma answered before anyone else could. It is. And since you've been talking about my mind in public, I don't mind having the public hear me use it. My mother flushed. Mother, that is unfair. Grandma looked at Harold. Begin. Harold stood at the end of the table. This meeting is being held at June Porter's request. Mrs. Porter has revoked Carol Bennett's power of attorney. The purpose today is to review disputed transactions and clarify Mrs. Porter's estate wishes. My father leaned back. Harold, we've known you 30 years. There's no need to make this sound like court. Harold said, then don't treat it like a confession. That was the first time I saw my father look uncertain. My mother leaned toward Grandma. Mother, I don't know what Marlene has told you, but we were trying to help Kevin through a temporary hardship. Grandma said, with my money. With family money. My money, Grandma repeated. Kevin spoke up. Grandma, nobody was stealing. The business needed short-term help. Everybody benefits if Bennett Outdoor survives. Grandma looked at him. Do I sell lawnmowers now? Kevin blinked. What? Do I sell lawnmowers? Do I order mulch? Do I pay your employees? No, but then do not call your business my responsibility. Dana said gently, Grandma June, Kevin has always loved you. Grandma turned to her. I know. Loving me did not give him signing authority. My mother's voice sharpened. Mother, Marlene has poisoned this. She has always been sensitive about Kevin. There it was. The old story, brought out like a serving dish. Grandma did not look at me. She kept her eyes on my mother. Carol, did you tell Marlene I was confused? Mom's mouth tightened. I said you have moments. What moments? You forget little things. I forget where I put my glasses. You forgot whose money you moved. A few people shifted in their chairs. Mom's face went red. Dad put a hand on the table. That's enough. Grandma turned toward him. Raymond, you have said that to women for 50 years. It has rarely been true. My father's hand curled into a fist, then relaxed. Harold opened the folder. On May 26, a cashier's check for $74.5 was issued from June Porter's managed account to Bennett Outdoor Supply LLC. Carol Bennett initiated the transaction under power of attorney. Raymond Bennett witnessed supporting paperwork. Mrs. Porter did not authorize this transfer, Kevin said. It was a loan. Harold looked at him. Where is the signed note? Kevin looked at my father. My father looked at the table. Harold continued. On May 31, $18,000 was transferred to Kevin Bennett personally. On June 2, $9,800 was transferred to Dana Bennett. Mrs. Porter did not authorize those either. Dana whispered, that was reimbursement. Grandma asked, for what? Dana did not answer. My mother said, there were expenses. Harold said, then you can provide receipts. My mother's lips pressed together. Then Harold pulled out the family acknowledgement. And on June 2, a document bearing Marlene Whitaker's name and a signature purporting to be hers was emailed to Cumberland Trust Bank. Mom said quickly, that was a draft. Harold looked at her. A signed draft? I was trying to avoid conflict. I spoke for the first time. By signing my name. My mother finally looked at me. Her eyes were full of anger, but under that anger was something worse. She looked offended that I had said it plainly. You would have refused, she said. The room seemed to hold its breath. I said, so you admit it. Dad barked, Carol. Mom looked startled, like she had stepped somewhere she did not mean to step. Harold picked up a pen. For clarity, Mrs. Bennett, are you stating that you signed Marlene Whitaker's name because you believed she would refuse? Mom's mouth opened. No sound came out. Kevin stood. This is ridiculous. Nobody is pressing charges. We're family. Grandma looked up at him. Sit down. He did not. Grandma, you don't understand what happens if this business fails. People lose jobs. My house tied up in it. Ashley's boys. Ashley stood in the back. Don't use my boys. Kevin turned. Ashley, stay out of this. Her voice shook, but she stayed standing. No, you used everybody. You used Grandma. You used Aunt Marlene. You used us every time you said this was about family. Dana whispered. Ashley held up her phone. And I have the garage video. Kevin's face changed. It was not fear exactly. It was calculation failing. My father looked at Ashley. What video? Harold said, I have reviewed it. It contains a conversation about copying Marlene's signature and concerns about the bank file. My mother whispered, Ashley, how could you? Ashley started crying. I learned it from you, she said. You always said family tells the truth. That one landed hard. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Grandma reached for the phone. It was not the old beige phone from Rosewood. This was Harold's office phone, placed on the table for a scheduled call. He slid it closer to her. My mother's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" Grandma looked at her daughter, then at my brother, then at my father. "I'm making sure nobody leaves this room saying I didn't know what I was doing." She pressed one button. The speaker clicked. A woman answered. "Cumberland Trust Bank. This is Elaine Mercer." Grandma leaned toward the phone. "Elaine, this is June Porter. I'm here with Harold Simmons, my family, and witnesses. Are you able to confirm what we discussed?" "Yes." "Mrs. Porter," Elaine said, "I can confirm that your accounts are currently restricted pending review, that Carol Bennett's power of attorney has been revoked, and that no further transfers will be honored under that authority." Grandma said, "And the document with Marlene's signature?" Elaine's voice stayed professional. "The bank did not accept it as valid authorization. It has been retained as part of the review file." Grandma looked at Mom. "Thank you, Elaine." "There is one more thing," Elaine said. Harold leaned forward slightly. Grandma said, "Go ahead." Elaine continued, "Our internal review found that a change of address request was submitted for statements on April 4, directing mail away from Mrs. Porter's residence and to Carol Bennett's email and home address. That request is also under review." Grandma closed her eyes for a moment. My mother stared at the phone. Elaine said, "We have also located a rejected request to liquidate the certificate of deposit ending in 4421. Harold's expression sharpened. Dad muttered, "Good Lord." Grandma opened her eyes. "Who submitted that?" Elaine said. "The request was initiated online using credentials associated with Carol Bennett's email." My mother stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. "I will not be humiliated like this." Grandma's voice was quiet. "Then you should not have done humiliating things." My mother grabbed her purse. Dad reached for her arm, but she pulled away. Kevin looked at Harold. "What happens now?" Harold said. "You repay the unauthorized transfers, provide full accounting, and cooperate. Mrs. Porter will decide, with counsel, whether to pursue further remedies." Kevin swallowed. "I don't have $74,000 sitting around." Grandma said, "You had it when you took it." He looked at me then, not at Grandma. At me, as if I were the one who had made the money disappear. "You're really going to do this?" he asked. I felt everyone looking at me. For most of my life that would have made me soften. I would have explained, apologized, tried to make my truth comfortable for the people who hated hearing it, but something in me had changed. Maybe it changed when I saw my forged signature. Maybe it changed when Grandma wrote, "I am not confused. I am disappointed." Maybe it changed when my mother asked for prayers against my greed. I looked at Kevin and said, "I'm not doing this. Grandma is, and the law is, and the papers are." He shook his head. "You're enjoying this." "No," I said. "That's the difference between us." The fellowship hall stayed still. Then Grandma reached into the blue folder and pulled out one more envelope. It was cream-colored, old, and sealed with tape that had yellowed at the edges. Harold looked surprised. June Grandma held it in both hands. "I wrote this in 2018, she said. "Harold has the original. This is my copy." She looked at my mother. I hoped I would never need to read it. Mom's face changed then. Anger gave way to something almost childlike. "Mother, don't." Grandma looked down at the envelope. "Carol, you have called me confused. You have used my name to take what I did not give. You have called your daughter greedy for asking why her own signature appeared on a paper she never signed. So yes, I will read it." She opened the envelope slowly. Her hands trembled, so Harold offered to read it. Grandma shook her head. "No." My voice. And in that church fellowship hall, under fluorescent lights and beside a bulletin board asking for canned goods, my 91-year-old grandmother read the letter that finally named the thing our family had avoided for decades. "To my family," she began, "if this letter is being read, it means my wishes have been questioned or ignored. I am writing while I am of sound mind. I know exactly who my children are. I know exactly who my grandchildren are. I know exactly what I own." My mother sat down, Grandma continued. "I love my daughter Carol, but Carol has always believed fairness means giving more to the person who complains loudest. I love my grandson Kevin. But Kevin has received help from this family many times, including money for vehicles, business debt, home repairs, and personal loans that were not repaid." Kevin looked at the floor. I love my granddaughter Marlene. Marlene has not asked me for money. She has given me time. She has taken me to doctors, cleaned my house, sat with me when I missed Joe, and treated my wishes as mine even when they were inconvenient. My eyes filled. Grandma's voice shook, but she kept reading. The house on Laurel Bend Road and the savings Joe left are to go to Marlene not because I love the others less, but because I have already watched her be overlooked for being dependable. Dependable people are not empty wells, they are people, and people who carry quietly still get tired. Ruth Ellen wiped her face. Ashley covered her mouth. My mother stared straight ahead. Grandma read the last line slowly. If anyone says Marlene manipulated me, they are lying. If anyone says I was confused, they are lying. If anyone says this is not what I wanted, ask them who benefits from saying so. Grandma folded the letter. Nobody moved. That was the public reveal. Not shouting. Not revenge the way people imagine it. Just an old woman reading the truth in a steady voice, while every lie in the room lost its place to stand. My mother stood again, but this time she did not storm out. She looked at Grandma with tears in her eyes. I'm your daughter, she said. Grandma's face softened, and that somehow hurt more. Yes, she said, and that is why this took me so long. Mom began to cry. For 1 second I almost went to her, then she looked at me and said, "Are you happy now?" And the old pull snapped. I stayed where I was. No, I said. I am just no longer confused. The weeks after that were not clean. Real life rarely gives you a perfect ending tied with a ribbon. Kevin did not suddenly become humble. My parents did not sit at my kitchen table and confess everything with tears and pie. Dana did not apologize. Some relatives believed the facts. Some believed whatever version made Thanksgiving easier. A few said, well, there are two sides. Even after seeing documents, hearing the bank manager, and watching my mother admit she signed my name because I would have refused, there are always people who call fog balance because they are afraid of clear weather. Harold handled most of it. Kevin had to sign a repayment agreement. He sold a fishing boat and one of the company trucks. Dana's reimbursement had to be returned. My parents had to account for every transaction they had made under Grandma's power of attorney. The bank kept the restrictions in place. A new professional fiduciary was assigned with Grandma's approval. As for the forged signature, Grandma chose not to push for criminal charges at first, as long as repayment happened and her accounts were secured. Harold made it very clear, in writing, that any further attempt to access, alter, pressure, or misrepresent her wishes would change that. My mother called that mercy. Grandma called it one last chance not to make me regret being soft. I did not visit my parents for 3 months. The first time my father called and did not leave a command, I answered. He sounded older. Marlene, he said. Dad, silence stretched between us. Finally, he said, your mother isn't doing well. I looked out my kitchen window at the roses, Thomas planted years before. I'm sorry to hear that. She misses you. I closed my eyes. What does she miss? Me or me being quiet? He did not answer. That was answer enough. Then he said, Kevin may lose the business. I felt sadness, but not guilt. I hope he doesn't. We thought you'd help. There it is, I said softly. What, the real reason you called? He sighed. Marlene, must you always make things so cold? I almost laughed. Cold. I thought of every casserole I had carried. Every appointment. Every holiday I had swallowed hurt so the table could stay pleasant. Every time I had been told my life was easier because my empty nursery never became a child's room. I learned from the best, I said. Then I hung up, not in anger. In completion, Ashley came to see me often after that. She was the one person from Kevin's side who tried to face what happened honestly. She told me her father was furious with her for weeks. Dana said she had betrayed the family. Ashley told them, no, I interrupted it. I was proud of her for that. One Saturday, she brought her boys to visit Grandma at Rosewood. Grandma gave each boy a peppermint from her purse and made them promise never to take money from old ladies, unless they were selling Girl Scout cookies, which made them laugh because they were boys and had no idea what to do with that. After they left, Grandma looked at me and said, she'll be all right, Ashley? Yes. She knows the cost of telling the truth now. That makes a person careful. But it can also make them strong. Grandma lived another 14 months. During that time, we did not talk about the inheritance every day. We talked about normal things. The cafeteria food. The weather. whether Pastor Jim's sermons were getting too long, which nurse wore too much perfume, the cardinals outside her window, the way old age turns your world smaller but not less important. Sometimes she cried over my mother, not loudly. Grandma was not a loud crier. She would just sit with a tissue folded in her hand and say, "I keep wondering where I taught her wrong." I would say, "You taught her plenty right. She chose what to use." Grandma never stopped loving my mother. That is another truth people do not like because it complicates the clean satisfaction of justice. She loved her daughter. She also changed the locks on her money. Both can be true. When Grandma passed, it was early September, just after dawn. I was holding her hand. She had been listening to old gospel music the night before, tapping one finger against the blanket. Her last clear words to me were, "Don't give them the spoon collection unless they ask nicely." I laughed through tears. She smiled. Then by morning she was gone. Her funeral was small but full. My mother came, my father came. Kevin and Dana sat near the back. Ashley sat beside me. There was no scene. Maybe some people expected one. People like drama as long as they can pretend they disapprove of it. But Grandma had already spoken. There was nothing left to perform. After the service, my mother approached me in the church hallway. She looked smaller than I remembered. "Marlene," she said, "your grandmother loved you very much." I nodded. "She loved you too." Mom's eyes filled. "I made mistakes. That was the closest she came." I waited, but nothing else followed. "No, I'm sorry I forged your name. No, I'm sorry I called you greedy. No, I'm sorry I tried to take what my mother wanted you to have. Just mistakes." I said, "Yes, you did." She flinched like I had slapped her, but I had not. I had simply stopped padding the truth. The estate settled exactly as Grandma intended. The Laurel Bend house had already been sold by then, legally and properly, with the proceeds held in trust. The account Grandpa left was protected. After expenses, what came to me was not enough to make me rich. It was enough to pay off my townhouse, fix my roof, and breathe easier when I opened medical bills. But the real inheritance was not the money, it was the letter. I keep a copy in my desk drawer, next to Thomas's photo and the little white envelope Grandma gave me years ago. For Marlene, when needed. Sometimes I take it out when I start doubting myself. Not because I want to relive the hurt, but because people who are trained to be quiet need reminders. Proof is not bitterness. Boundaries are not revenge. Telling the truth is not cruelty. My parents still live in the white brick house. I see them sometimes at church, though I changed services for a while to give my heart room. My mother tells people we had a disagreement over estate matters. My father does not talk about it. Kevin's business survived, smaller than before. He sold off part of his inventory, let 2 employees go, and had to rent out the back warehouse. He has not spoken to me except once, at the grocery store, when he nodded like we were strangers who used to know the same person. Dana sends Christmas cards with only her name signed. Ashley still visits. Her boys call me Aunt Marlene and ask for cookies. Every time they leave, she hugs me longer than before. Last Thanksgiving, instead of going to my parents' house, I hosted a small dinner at my townhouse. Ruth Ellen came. Ashley and the boys came for dessert. We used Grandma's old serving bowl for sweet potatoes. The spoon collection stayed in the drawer because nobody had asked nicely. After everyone left, I washed dishes alone while old music played from the radio. For a moment, I felt that familiar ache. The ache of what family could have been if everyone had chosen differently. Then I dried my hands, turned off the kitchen light, and sat by the window. Peace does not always feel joyful at first. Sometimes it feels like a quiet room after years of noise. Sometimes it feels like not answering the phone. Sometimes it feels like paying your bills without fear. Sometimes it feels like reading a letter from someone who saw you clearly and believed you before you had to prove anything. And sometimes, peace begins when a 91-year-old woman picks up the phone and refuses to let her daughter rewrite the truth. If you have ever had to stand alone in front of people who should have protected you, I want you to know something. You are not dramatic for remembering what happened. You are not greedy for asking questions. You are not cruel for keeping proof. And you are not selfish for choosing peace after years of being used. Some families will call you cold when you stop burning yourself to keep them warm. Let them. Your life is still yours. Your name is still yours. Your story is still yours. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. And if this story reminded you of someone who always gave too much and got blamed the moment she asked for fairness, send it to her. She may need to hear that quiet women are allowed to protect themselves too. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Take care of your heart, protect your peace, keep your papers safe, and I'll see you in the next story. Bye bye.